Hello everyone, welcome KJ4YZI. It's absolutely destructive lightning outside. I have everything unplugged. I'm very stressed out. Time to make a video, right? What do I do when I'm stressed out? I come in here and think you guys make a video, so that's what I'm going to do. And in honor of the worst company I ever worked for, I'm going to wear my AT&T hat. That company sucks. AT&T sucks. So I could say that. I worked there for years. Anyways, today in this video we're going to talk about, you know, here's one thing that made me think of this video, right? So with the satellite tracker coming up and working amateur satellites and all that, and people, you know, maybe I should start over. Let's go to the beginning, okay? Because one of the contacts I made a few weeks ago on SO50, the guy really wanted my grid square, right? And then I get this in the mail. It's an AMSAT shirt, right? But I saw this, read it. Let's read it together. See if I can read it backwards in the camera. I had a QSO on it. I can't do that in the camera backwards. No way. All right, let's do this. I had a QSO on a repeater that is 4 inches square, traveling 17,000 miles an hour, 1,400 miles away, using 5 watts in outer space. Easy. That's my QSL card. The guy sent me a card and he sent me a shirt and he said, thanks, I needed your grid square, Echo Lima 97. So then I thought, wow, yeah, I understand what's going on, but maybe you don't. Maybe you're wanting to follow and you're like, well, this guy's out there, you know, you see me out there waving into the air with the satellite antenna. What the hell am I doing? Let me explain it to you, just so you know why it's a challenge to work satellites, why it's so fun, and why it means a lot when you make a satellite contact. You know, that shirt brainstormed me to think, maybe I should explain, because people have asked, where do you get your information to find satellites? Where do you go online and what app do you use? How do you know that satellite is that way? Well, let me explain it to you. And then this way you have a better idea about satellites. Then we'll get to part 2 of the satellite tracker. And in my middle of busy everyness of everything that happens, including my chaotic desk here, I have another antenna here that I haven't even opened yet. This is the high gain satellite antenna because I'm going to try something different other than the arrow antenna. And then I still have the high gain moon bounce antenna that's got to get put together. A lot of stuff here. By the way, thanks to Eric for sending me the little utility power bank in the P.O. box here. He says, hey, I think you'd like this. It's a little, you know, rechargeable. I have a bunch of these power banks, but this one's got, you know, the fan and the light and stuff. Pretty cool. Thanks, Eric. My followers, you know, they always think of me. And before I get started, handwritten letters from people that hate my guts. It's too bad I can't read that on email or on video, but anyways, he wasn't really mad at me. He's just, yeah, my video on the 2-meter band, you know, it was just a call to action to get you to, you know, understand, use it or lose it, and people took that way beyond to the point now where ARRL sends me letters, the ITU sends me letters, stop what you're doing, cancel the video, get rid of it, you're an idiot. You know, I get it. That video wasn't meant to be like that 2-meter video, but I just wanted to bring to your attention, guys, use it or lose it. Get on UHF, get on VHF, or people want to take your band, you know? No, it's not happening in the US, but whatever. Anyways, so the guy that sent me the, was this one right here, KE0PBR. He's the one that sent the shirt, and he needed my grid, so I got a QSL card. And I also got one, well, this is Eric here. Eric sending me the battery bank. So he sent me some other stuff in the past, so he's pretty cool. Thank you all my followers. You guys are the best, man. So anyways, a couple shots into it. Raining outside, stressed out, just want to pull my hair out, man. Let's get going. Let's check out satellites and how you can get into understanding when to find a pass, what it is you're doing, what's happening out there in outer space. Here it comes.
HamRadioConcepts. The place to come for amateur radio videos.
Okay, first up on the agenda, let's look at what a satellite looks like, okay? I've been Googling this just to find some instances to show you. What is a ham radio satellite? Well, let's go to Google. That's right. Actually, yeah, let's go to Google. And we're going to type in ham radio satellite. And I'm just going to go to Google Images. And, oh, there's my video right there. Images, right? Okay. So for a couple examples, right, look at these little things here. You see this little tiny thing? There's a couple solar panels, right, some circuitry. These things are only a few inches by a few inches when you're talking about a ham radio satellite. They're not that big. Okay, there's so many different ham satellites out there. And this guy is just really serious at what he does. But anyways, you know, let's look at, I don't know, SO50s or a picture of SO50. Well, maybe that's it. Okay. And let's see where we go on that. I'm just clicking around, guys. So there, a little picture of that, right? Solar powered. Normally what they have, and I know this for a fact, what they have on these satellites is a little quarter wave antenna, and it happens to be right here. So a quarter wave antenna, right? What is that? Like, picture on your vehicle, you have a 19-inch 2-meter antenna, which is a quarter wave, right? That antenna is mounted on one of the corners of the satellite. And you may be thinking, wow, that's a small antenna. Well, check this out. 250 milliwatts, a quarter of a watt, right? For a quarter wave antenna on UHF or VHF, whatever the uplink or downlink is. 250 milliwatts, that's not a lot, but it's line of sight. UHF and VHF is line of sight, which means basically even though it's like, you know, 15, 1600 miles up or down range, you still have a clear shot to it. There's no trees in the way, there's no buildings in the way, there's just the atmosphere and the satellite, right? So line of sight doesn't take much, but think if you had a 20-watt transmitter up here, it would require more power. So if it required more power, you'd have to have a bigger satellite, bigger batteries, more solar panels. These things are built and designed to run at minimal power so that they can last a long time in space with solar power and batteries and stuff like that. So a quarter of a watt on a quarter wave antenna. Not a lot of power, but yet sometimes if you got that antenna pointing on there, it's just blanketing your receive, right? But anyways, this is what you're working. Like when you're seeing a satellite in space, or I mean you're trying to get a satellite in space, this is what you're looking at. You may be familiar with a regular 2-meter repeater, which is like, I don't know, a 50 or 100 watt repeater on a 300-foot tower with a 24-foot antenna. No, not on satellite. So I like to say it's taking a handheld antenna aiming at something the size of a cereal box in space. How fast does the satellites move? They actually, let me look at my shirt. I don't know the exact speed, but the shirt says 17,000 miles an hour, which is about right because it's, 17,000 miles an hour. That satellite's moving, okay? And you're trying to hit it with an antenna, and that's why it's such a big deal when you have a little tiny box like this. So there's a ton of different satellites. I'll show you that here shortly. I don't really know all of the satellite stuff. I actually worked a satellite years ago with a Yaesu VX5R with a rubber ducky. Now, you have to have like a direct overhead pass to do that, but that was on what? That had to have been 10 years ago or more because I've been living in this house almost 10 years. And that was, I call that an accident. You know, that was an accident. But these little satellites are impressive when you look at these things. So, number one, the size and how fast this thing's moving is why it's such a big deal to work at amateur satellite. When it's moving that fast, you have what you call Doppler shift. Okay? Before we get into Doppler shift, though, let's talk about where I go to find these satellites or this information. How do you know what frequency this little satellite's on? You know, how do you know what frequency SO50 is on? Well, like the shirt says, AMSAT.org. Now, amateur satellites, AMSAT.org, the biggest organization that's been doing this for amateur satellites. Now, I am not a member, and honestly, I don't know any of these guys. I've seen them at multiple hamfests, but I don't know them. They don't know me. So I want to be a member, though, and join AMSAT because, you know, if there's one site or one organization I could tell you to actually support for a good reason, it's this one. Okay, I don't think I've ever said, hey, join the ARRL. They're behind you. They're what you need. But I could tell you, you want to join the AMSAT because this is a machine. AMSAT.org is a lot of people that have education, they have information, they have satellite information, projects, all software, all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to be doing that one day. I'll join, much like my Patreon people support me and send me donations. I'm going to join this so my little membership fee helps them because I'm hitting this site a lot. But AMSAT.org is probably the biggest known, and I think there's an AMSAT UK as well, but I don't really browse that one. So when I talk about AMSAT, where do I go? The first place I go is Satellite Info tab, and I go down to past predictions. There's a lot of stuff. Schedules or status, you know, to check on the status of individual satellites. All kinds of stuff here. We're going to go to past predictions because I want to make this video as short as possible, so I don't want to keep talking and talking. So there's a bunch of satellites. Maybe in the future we'll do videos on each satellite and what I can find out and what I know about it. But what I know is there's a couple of, mark these down. These are your easy amateur satellites. You have AO85, which is an FM satellite that can be used with a Bofeng or an ICOM 9700, an FM UHF uplink, VHF downlink. Okay, that's an easy bird. Birds are what they call satellites. Birds, working the birds. The bird passes, you know. The next one, so AO85, then you have AO91, AO92. Okay, those are, now you have to look at different ones because some of these turn off at certain times. Some of these conserve battery power, stuff like that. We're going to get into that in the future. And one more that's an easy satellite is SO50. I think the one I worked years ago was AO51, and I don't think that's here anymore. I think that was the one that I worked by accident. If I'm wrong, forgive me. But SO50, AO85, AO91, AO92. Those are about the four that I know right off the top of my head that I could say, yep, those are easy FM birds to hit. So let's say I want to look at AO85. And I want to see when this thing is going to pass, okay? This is on the AMSAT website on the past predictions. So the first I'm going to type in my grid square. My grid is Echo Lima 97 Sierra Sierra. The Sierra Sierra at the end really narrows it down where I am in Echo Lima 97. And when you click calculate position, it gives you your lat and long. And I think I'm like, 1 meter above sea level? We'll just pick one. And predict. So it's going to give you 10 past predictions, the next 10 passes that you'd be able to work. Now let me explain this, okay? What you're looking at is in UTC, and the date here and the time. Let me explain this. So the very next pass that it's showing me is July 26th, okay? Today is the 26th. So July 26th at 21:31, which would be 17, which would be 5:31. 21 would be 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. No, 5:31. 5:31. Oh my gosh. Yep. They're already commenting. They're already just screaming at me. You moron. Anyways. Okay. So that, believe it or not, look what time it is. 5:42. 9 minutes ago, this thing just passed over. Okay. So 5:31 AOS. What is AOS? Acquisition of signal, which means this is the very beginning that you're physically ever able to possibly contact this satellite. All right? We're not including trees, buildings, how far down below sea level you are. We're talking if you had a clear shot to the horizon with nothing in the way, your very first opportunity would be 21:31, which would be 5:31 p.m. Okay? Now, normally I have to wait a couple minutes because that's like right at the line of the horizon, even if I'm on the beach, right? The duration is 10 minutes. So you could assume that you have 10 minutes, theoretically, 10 minutes possible to work this satellite. To me, that means like 6 or 7 minutes. I'm counting a minute or two to get it off the horizon, and then a minute before it hits the horizon on the downfall or the descent. So 10 minutes. Now, the acquisition of signal azimuth. This means if you're thinking about azimuth and elevation, you know, a compass, 0 degrees north or 360 degrees north would be due north, right? and 180 would be due south. 90 degrees would be due east, and 270 would be due west. So 359, which means this thing's coming out of the direct north. That's where the acquisition is. The beginning of that signal is in the north, okay? The max elevation is only 11 degrees. Now, that's not really a game changer. Why? Because 11 degrees, so take your azimuth and elevation, for those that don't know. Hold your arms straight now. Ready with me on the video. Hold your arms straight out in front of you. Straight out. Put a level on it. Make sure it's 0 degrees straight out. That is level. That's 0 degrees. Look at the edge of your fingertips and tell me what you see. If you're outside, you're going to see somebody's house, a tree line, whatever. That's 0 degrees. Then take your arm and hold it straight above your head. That's 90 degrees. Straight above your head, 90 degrees. So in between that would be 45, right? That would be like kind of up here, 45 degrees. So 11 degrees is not much higher than the actual horizon. You're probably just over the tree line. That's not a really good elevation. I mean, people with a 200-foot tower and this huge $10,000 array could pull it off. The guy in the driveway like me, not really going to pull it off. This is what you want to see. 60-degree elevation right here. 45-degree elevation. That is the maximum. That's the max it's going to rise on the pass. So I can do 45. I could do 60. But 1 degree, you see this right here? 1 degree? No way. You ain't hitting a 1 degree pass. And if you do, I'll send you $100 if you can show me proof. Now, the max elevation azimuth means when this thing is, let's use this one, 60 degrees maximum elevation. When this thing is 60 degrees, your azimuth is going to be 132 degrees. So that's between east and south. So southeast is where this thing right here is going to be 60 degrees high. Your loss of signal azimuth means at the very end, when that thing is gone, you're at 105 degrees. Okay? So that means it came from the due north, and 105 degrees means it's just past east. So it's east-southeast. Okay? So it went from the north to the east-southeast, and it only rose to a maximum of 11 degrees elevation. And the loss of signal UTC is 2141. So you have 10 minutes. Okay? So you can see on this here where I'm getting some calculation. And I'm going to show you an app here on this video next. So stay tuned. But you can see here, okay, my next chance really is going to be, what is this? 23 minus 4, 19. It'd be 711. Now look, 711, I'm going to have a 45-degree pass, a 45-degree elevation, coming almost from the north, so that'd be north-northwest. And I have a 12-minute duration, a good chance to work AO 85 at 711. And if you click on View the Current Location right here, it'll show you a map of where that's at. Now, what you can see is it's going this way. You see AO 85? Follow my mouse. Ready? It's going this way. The next pass is going to be here. That's the 711 pass right here. Now it's going to be to my west, and it's not really overhead, but it's 45-degree elevation. You can kind of get an idea, and this is where the satellite clock comes in. Remember the video on the satellite clock? Shows all this right here. That's why that satellite clock is cool. So you can see this thing just passed way off to my east, way over here. But the next pass is going to be more promising coming over the Gulf. So this is why AMSAT is a really good resource, not to mention all the information that you can find in education. Go down here to current status. Look at this. It shows you the status of the different satellites here. Look at all the satellites. You know, you could put spots in, submit a report, a lot of stuff on here to help you. Visit AMSAT.org. And I hope to find some of these guys at HamFest and meet them so they could say, "Hey, Eric, love the video." Okay, so now I am an iPhone user. I can't believe I made the switch, but I'm kind of liking it. iPhone's pretty cool. So here's the app. This may be on Android as well. You have to check. It's called SatSat. You see that? SatSat. That's what I call it. It's a free app for now. What will happen is like the CW app back in the day. They'll say, "Oh, wow, 10,000 people downloaded it. Now it's $10 to buy it." So get it now while it's free. Free app, and it's pretty cool. So I could set up, you see here, I have my favorites in here called My Sats, right? And these are some satellites that I could track at a glance. Maybe you're only interested in SO50 or the International Space Station. You could program that. And it shows you on here the next pass time, or the next duration, the elevation of that duration, the name of the satellite, and stuff. If I click on AO85, which looks to be the next pass at 23 degree elevation, I can click that, and it's going to show me a map of where it is now. And it gives me some other information, like the azimuth and elevation currently. And watch it. It's real time. Watch the numbers change. See? So right now, negative 42 degrees is like that way. It's like that way. So you're never hitting that unless you can beam through the earth. But anyways, while that thing is coming by, it does show you what the current elevation and azimuth is in real time. The range rate, the Doppler shift, the shift in frequency makes it a little bit easier to see that. And the frequencies of the transponders, so you have an uplink and a downlink all the time, and normally those are split. So you either have a UHF uplink and a VHF downlink, or vice versa. So it shows you the frequencies here and the tone that may be required to activate that repeater. And if I go to live, it'll show me a live, what would you call that, a Smith chart or polar chart? And it'll show me live as this thing's coming by. It'll kind of draw a line so I can see, okay, right now it's coming out of the north, now it's overhead, or it's way off to my west. And if I go to calendar, it'll show me that's what it would look like. The green indicating the acquisition of signal, and red indicating loss of signal. And it shows me there the time and date exactly with the frequency shift of that. So you'll see that it's going to come out, this one's going to come out of the south-southeast and go to almost due north. Okay, so a pretty cool app here. There's some settings in here that you could play with if you want different units and stuff like that. But a cool app, SAT, and there's a lot of them out there. You may comment already and say, oh no, this app's the best, that app's the best, whatever. It's whatever you want. I just picked this one. So far it seems great. If I'm out in the field and I want to use this thing, a cool app to give me a snapshot of the satellites, and I can kind of dial that in and get ready to go without having to pull up a laptop and everything out in the field. Okay, let's go into some more detail here. Doppler shift or Doppler effect, what is it? This is what you have to know to work an amateur satellite. Think of a satellite moving 17,000 miles an hour on UHF, okay? UHF downlink. So what's going to happen is what I call the ice cream truck effect, or the police siren effect. As the satellite is moving towards you, the frequency is going to be higher. As it moves away from you, the frequency is going to be lower. Example would be a police siren. If you're on a road and you hear a police car coming, it's going to go, wee, 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 right? It goes by you, and it's high pitched when it comes at you, and it's lower pitched when it goes away from you. The definition of Doppler shift is a change in frequency or wavelength of a wave in relation to an observer who is moving relative to the wave source. So, listen, I don't know if you can hear this. Listen to the little example of a passing car horn. Right? So, if you look at the little pictorial here, here's the car, and let's say I'm standing right here to the left. Now, as the car is coming to me, you can see the little waves are higher pitched than they are behind the car. That's called Doppler shift. If your guy drives an ice cream truck in your neighborhood and he's going like 50 down your public road when he shouldn't be, you're going to hear it. It's going to go right by you, and he's going to be lower in pitch as he's going away from you. The dude should only be doing like 10 miles an hour anyways, so you're not going to notice it too much on an ice cream truck. But the guy that blew by me last week for the Florida Highway Patrol on 95, that guy was booking it. And man, you could hear the Doppler effect as it came and passed by. So this is important for programming your radio for Doppler shift, because you have to be able to accommodate for the change in frequency. If you don't, now, for example, my ICOM 9700 here, I have the waterfall or the scope, and this is why this is a really cool radio. I could look at the frequency of the satellite on the scope and just tune my dial to where I line up that waterfall image, right? So if you have a radio or not a fancy radio like that, what you're going to do is you're going to program several channels of memories into this radio so that you start high in frequency to match the satellite coming towards you. When it's directly overhead or close to overhead, you're going to be on frequency, and as it's moving away, you're going to be lower in frequency. So ever so often when it starts to get distorted, you're going to bump it down a little bit to just tune for the frequency. If you don't have a VFO like this 9700, you can do it with channels on a radio. Now, let me switch over here to SO50 information, okay? Here is the frequency, another reason why I love AMSAT. They got a lot of information on here. Mode J is what they call on 2 meters uplink and UHF downlink. Now, your frequencies are going to be programmed. Your base frequency is 145.850 uplink and 436.795 downlink. But that's if it was directly overhead. So if it's coming up over the horizon towards you, you're going to be higher than this frequency. And if it's going away from you, you're going to be lower than this frequency. But note this. You know how your normal amateur 2-meter repeater or 70-centimeter repeater has a PL tone or a CTCSS tone to activate the repeater? The same happens with some of these satellites. SO50 is a little more complicated than some of the other ones. If the satellite's sitting there doing nothing, it's going to go into more of a dormant mode, right? So nobody's using it. It's going to go into a dormant mode and just collect power from the solar panels or reserve power. Now, if I wanted to activate it, let's say this satellite is coming towards me and there's nobody using it, which is a very unlikely event. Every time there's a satellite pass, somebody's on it. So you're going to transmit a 2-second carrier with 74.4 hertz tone. So basically, this repeater, this satellite, says, hey, if I hear 74.4 hertz for 2 seconds, I'm going to arm the satellite, which means it's going to let traffic or voice through it. Now, once you arm it, you're going to switch over to a 67 hertz tone. And you may be thinking, wow, you totally lost me. Okay. Think of this. Your local 2-meter repeater in the area, you always, for instance, my local 2-meter repeater, we have a tone of 107.2. That's a lot of them in my area that have 107.2. So anytime I want to talk through that repeater, my radio has to transmit that subaudible tone, 107.2. If I don't, the repeater's not going to hear me. It's not going to key up. Well, the same thing happens to the satellite, although they do it a little differently. They use a 74.4 hertz tone to arm it every 10 minutes. Now, again, you may automatically hear people on the satellite, but somebody out there has to arm this thing every 10 minutes. Okay? So if 10 minutes hit and nobody arms it, it's just going to stop. And you got to switch over. That's why it's good to have a frequency programmed in just with this tone so that you can switch over to it, key up, arm the repeater, and away you go. But given the fact that there's so many people on these things, somebody out there is already doing that. So just rest assured, you're always going to hear somebody on the satellite, and someone's always going to think about arming that, okay? Now, so repeaters or satellites in space have tones, and that's to keep, unnecessary key ups or kerchunks or whatever to activate the satellite, There may be a repeater or something that is close to this frequency. Someone may be using that on simplex and unnecessarily keying up that repeater, so you use tones. Now, so we got this far, okay? You have your Doppler shift, you have your tone, but every repeater is different. Some repeaters don't have an arm timer tone. Some of them just used 67 hertz. Some of them use 74 hertz. I don't know. But last thing I want to show you is right here. On AMSAT. If you go to this is an example of how a Yaesu VX8R dual band handheld for FM could be programmed for this satellite. If you look at this example has, again, one frequency or one channel programmed with that arm tone right here, 74.4, in case you have to rearm that satellite. Now, channels 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are all set up for Doppler shift. Remember, the frequency downlink to this satellite is 436.795. But as it's approaching you, you want to be higher in frequency. So in this example right here, they have channel 2 as the highest frequency that they, normally a 10 kilohertz or 15 kilohertz split between it. So that'd be about 15 kilohertz, I guess. You're going to start at 436.810 and you're going to listen and listen. Once you get that thing pinned on that satellite and you hear it, you're going to hear it on 810. As it's coming to you, every couple of minutes, you're going to hear it start to get a little fuzzy or garbled. You drop down a frequency, 805. You drop down, 800. Right about overhead pass or directly in front of you on the pass, you're going to be at the base frequency here. And then as it's moving away from you, you're going to adjust 790, 785, 780 as it's going away. And always having this tone. Now, look at the transmit frequency. The transmit frequency normally doesn't change for Doppler shift. Okay? I haven't really gotten to expert mode as far as why. But I can tell you that some of these, they suggest only 2 to 3 kilohertz. Maybe you got to tweak a little bit on the transmit, right? Let's say this is coming at you. Maybe you need to tweak this at 852 or 852.5. And then when it's descent away from you, you want to be 847.5. Not too much on the transmit. It's all what you're hearing. I think the satellite compensates for the Doppler shift from the ground station to the satellite. I think that's why you normally don't have to change your frequency on the transmit up or the uplink, right? So keep this in mind. You can look at this right here and program this into your radio to work SO50. And it may be different every pass. Maybe some of the passes are so far on the horizon that you don't have to go to 810. Maybe you're only using 436.805, 800, 795, 790. It just depends on how downrange that thing is. If it's coming directly at you, that is going to be the most Doppler shift. If it's out over the horizon on the beach at 15 degrees elevation, you may not notice it that much. So, if the satellite is coming beeline directly at you, the Doppler shift will be the greatest. If it's then passing over your head and going directly away from you, the Doppler shift will be the most, noticeable and most important. That's your lessons on Doppler shift, and AMSAT has all the information for satellite, frequencies and stuff like that. They're in here. Let's see, if you click on communication satellites, let's go to AO91, and it'll tell you in here somewhere on this site. I know it's here somewhere. It shows you all the frequencies, but check it out. Okay, let's sum this up here because the video has been entirely too long. This is just for FM birds or FM satellites. There's a whole world of sideband satellites out there. Satellites for APRS, satellites for packet, all kinds of different satellites out there that we can get to in the future. The big thing is you could do this with any kind of radio practically. Anything that will do VHF and UHF, but I go fancy. I get the ICOM 9700 because it's full duplex. Now there's a lot of full duplex handhelds out there, well a few. One that I showed in a video in the past was this one right here, the Ushan UV8D Plus. And this is a $140 Chinese handheld that has full duplex on it. What does full duplex mean? So that means I can, when I'm out there waving that satellite around, right, and I finally get it nailed onto that satellite, and I'm calling KJ4YZI Echo Lima 97, as I'm transmitting on one band, I could receive myself on the other band simultaneously. So I could hear myself coming out of the satellite. Now, the caveat with this radio is, with the Chinese quality in here, I guess, the internal duplexer on SO50, when I'm transmitting on 2 meters up, it kind of desenses the receive on the UHF down. So I can't really hear myself on SO50. Still usable, but just not full duplex. But AO85 and AO91, I could hear myself. So I could be KJ4YZI Echo Lima 97. Like my field day video, you can see when we finally heard my voice coming out, he got that antenna on there, and I could hear myself coming back out. I mean, if it's garbage in, garbage out. If I'm sending trash to the satellite, I'm going to get trash back. But if I'm sending a good signal in and it's sending a good signal out, I can assume everybody's hearing me in that footprint. So, a neat little radio. The link is in the description in a previous video on that. So a lot of stuff to cover on satellites. So that way, at least when I'm out there, waving satellites around, it makes a little more sense. And one more thing I want to touch on, because you can do this with any radio. Let's say you have a handheld and you're doing this with a rubber duck, which can be done if it's an overhead pass, right? So the satellite is not always going like this around the Earth. The satellite's going like this around the Earth. It's tumbling, and if the antenna's on the one corner, eventually it's going vertical polarized, horizontal polarized, vertical polarized. So it's like your local repeater. When you're at a distant range and you're hearing it, go ahead and turn it like this on a receive and tell me what you hear. Sometimes it just disappears. The same thing can happen while I'm out there turning that antenna to try to get those elements to match the polarization of the satellite downlink. Same for the uplink. So the satellite birds are way more detrimental for Doppler shift and the polarization. It could be the difference of making the satellite all to none. That's why it's really important. Some guys that are rich and they have all this money and they're really big into it, they take a tracker and they put 4 antennas vertical, 4 horizontal, and they just throw a switch and they switch it from the vertical bank to the horizontal bank. That way they're not outside turning the antennas. I kind of like the nostalgia and the camaraderie of being out there with that antenna and doing it manually. That's what I like. So to finish up this video, let's do this. Let's go over the shirt again. We're going to read this together and see if this makes a little more sense to those that may not know and why this shirt, why someone would print this shirt on there. Big deal. It's a 2-meter contact, right? Let's read it again. Okay, here we go. I had a QSO on a repeater that is 4 inches square, traveling 17,000 miles an hour, 1,400 miles away, using 5 watts in outer space. Easy, right? So that's why it's a big deal. That's why satellite is so intriguing and so, ask your buddy when he says, oh, hey, big deal. Have you ever talked through a satellite going 17,000 miles an hour? No, right? And by the way, 5 watts should be all you need. When I had my radio out there, my 9700, I wasn't using more than 5 watts. This is a 5-watt radio. This is a 5-watt radio. Don't be that guy in Mexico that's going to dump 350 watts into that satellite and ruin it for everybody. You're not having a QSO. You're not. The one guy that commented last week, he said, real good contesting ham radio. Okay, so I didn't learn where he lived. I didn't learn what his local restaurant is, his favorite restaurant, the medication he was on, how many dogs he had, his wife's name, or what he watches before he goes to bed. What fun is that? Okay, so you go on 75 meters if you want to do that. For me, I'm going to get on satellite, KJ4YZI, Echo Lima 97, and the other guys need to come back and say Alpha Bravo 4, Echo Zulu, Delta Mike 41. Thanks for the contact, 73. Boom, boom, boom. You didn't pay $8 million for it, so why should you hog that satellite? That's my theory. Anyways, satellites are good contacts. There's really no rag chew on there, but it's the fun and the challenge of hitting that thing and working it. And then down the road, we'll get into other satellites like Packet and APRS, the International Space Station, stuff like this. I hope this video gave you some insight. I'm going to tell you what it did for me. It turned my crappy ass day into a really good day. Thinking that I'm making videos for you guys and you're watching. You can like, you can subscribe. You don't have to. I don't care. The fact that you watched it, put a smile on my face, man. You guys are the best. You're amazing. I'll never forget all of you subscribers, ever. 7-3, KJ4YZI.